Thank you guys for being here tonight.
Thank you for having us.
We don't have a name yet, so I don't know if we're going to end up doing some name suggestions out there. We've thrown something out like Coffee with Herron Solutions or stuff like that. We have no clue what we're doing as far as names, but we're going to figure that out. But the whole reason we started this was because we know sometimes in the middle of the night or during the day, people are just going through struggles with life in general, with addiction, with just everything. So our heart has been around addiction and recovery for a long time. So that's where we feel we've been called to start this and just be able to maybe just give somebody an inspiring word or something they might need to hear when maybe nobody's around and they're just scrolling and they just need to hear that they have value, they're worth something, and they don't have to believe lies that addiction tells them and that bondage that they are kept in. I heard something we were watching last night, and it said something as to the sort. I don't remember the exact words, but you and I were watching it, and it said something about being in a prison without doors or something, and the picture that it was showing of these people that were on this drug, they were literally, it looked as if they were chained or locked in, but their windows were open, the doors were open, but they couldn't go anywhere. And that really just, these past few weeks have been difficult for many reasons. Personal work, they've been really hard. So I've been very angry about addiction lately. Very, very angry. And these past couple days, I've been really sad. My heart's been really sad. And I'm still here to fight and do whatever we can do to push forward and let people know they have value. So thank you guys for being here. And Joshua?
Well, kind of piggybacking off what you had said, the value part for people trapped and locked into addiction. I think a lot of the times we get stuck and focus on people's behaviors instead of who the person is when they're in active addiction. It's really easy to do. Do I need to adjust this microphone? I just ruined the whole thing. Okay. It's really easy to do to see a loved one, a friend, a neighbor locked into these behaviors, and we know what they typically are. And I think I've fallen victim to those behaviors in my past. And in the beginnings of struggling out of addiction, I fell prey to judging people by their behaviors as well. It took me a long time, a lot of self-evaluation before I was able to see that focusing on those behaviors and bringing those to light kind of pushes and confines the person in those behaviors, because you're not being seen as for the genuine person you are, like you said, the value a person has. But to move on from that statement, we do have two guests here. I would like to maybe ask a few questions, maybe start off by sharing your experience in what you have with addiction. Maybe it's personal or someone you may know. We would like to hear your thoughts and ideas.
Okay. Thank you for having me. I am JoJo. I go by JoJo as my nickname. Gone by it for years. I've seen addiction my whole life, honestly, through my parents, family. Growing up, it was just the norm for a long time. Then I started getting in trouble. The older I got, kind of fast forwarding from seeing addiction, obviously it caused a lot of trauma for me in the past, and it was very hard to process that as a young kid to a teenager. But as I continue to grow, I obviously knew it was wrong. But the way addiction works is I still ended up in that storm, drowning, ended up, getting in trouble. And that's when I first kind of got into, I don't want to say the rooms yet, but just accountability. Like I knew I did wrong and I had to face consequences, and I struggled through trying to be honest. Then when I was in my addiction, I was a very evil person. I was always the victim. I had the blame. I blamed everybody for everything. It was always my parents' fault, or my friends for peer pressuring me, or going down that road because I didn't know what accountability was at the time when I first, nobody was there to even teach me accountability, and growing up you hear, oh, I drink because I worked all day, or, I use because that's how I escape my demons, or whatever, excuses that people have used in the past. But after I got in trouble and I started, realizing that that wasn't who I wanted to be. I got introduced to the rooms at a very young age. I remember being forced to go to IOP, and I had 5 classes. Actually, I think I had like 2 a day. So Monday through Friday, it was MRT, untangling relationships, stuff like that, and got UA'd all the time, and if I didn't go to these classes, or if I didn't get, or if I got a dirty UA, I would, get a probation violation and end up in jail. And of course I didn't want that. So I obviously broke it because I was an addict, and, we're not all perfect. So I test the waters. I would try to, cheat the UAs, or I would try to cheat class, and I soon realized that I couldn't do that anymore, and I started learning more about myself. I started learning what honesty was. I started learning what a healthy relationship looked like. I started being a human being, because when you're in an addiction, you're just chasing that next high, that next fix up, and I remember all of the ladies that were with me in my IOP were always telling me, "You're so young," because I think it was like I was 20, not even 21 yet. And they're like, "What are you doing? You're not even 21 yet. Like, you still have all..." And it's like, no, it took it that fast to get where I was already. That addiction took over me so fast to realize that, like, hey, if I don't start fixing it here, I'm going to end up, jails, institutions, or death, and I didn't want to end up there. I watched my mother go through that very hard. My mom was a severe alcoholic, and she would have seizures trying to quit. She didn't want to drink anymore. And I remember skipping high school and spoon feeding her vegetable beef soup and pouring alcohol down her throat just so she can stop seizing. Like, it was that bad. And I always told myself growing up, I'm not going to be like that. I'm not going to be like that. But then I found myself in those same shoes, struggling, making wrong choices, even though I knew where it ended up. I think that's where I struggled the most. But I started really getting into classes. I found a home group. I started finding people that wanted to be clean and wanted to be healthy. And I always used to walk into the room and say, wow, I wouldn't rather be anywhere else than with a group of people that wanted to do better for themselves. I just remember always saying that. And that was my encouragement to keep coming back. Because it's like, it's growth, who doesn't want to grow? Like, who doesn't want to sit there and continue to be in the same spot over and over again, even if it's miserable, or even if it's good? Like, there's always more room to grow. So I got into the rooms. I started doing these classes. I struggled so bad with them. Like, I would end up getting a PV, going to jail, getting out of jail, praying to God, please forgive me. I won't do it again, doing it again. It was just a horrible cycle that I was stuck in, unfortunately. And finally, I remember one time I got out of jail and I panicked, and I was like, she's going to put me back in again. I know it. I have to go to a halfway house. So I went to a halfway house. Hated it completely. My parents never told me what to do. I was a free child. I could run the streets. I could go do whatever I wanted. Like, that was just something that I've always did. Well, now I went to this halfway house where I had a house mom that told me I had to be indoors by 8 p.m. I had to do my chores. I had to be a regular human being. I never had to do those things, But it taught me so much, because coming from a parent with addicts, I didn't know how to clean. I didn't know how to do basic needs. I didn't know how to pay bills or take care of myself or my hygiene even. I didn't know how to do those things in addiction. So I ended up being in this halfway house. It was horrible. It sucked at first. I hated it. I didn't want to be there. I argued with the mom. We call her house mom. All the time I argued with her any chance I got. But I started getting used to it. I went to a group. I had no car. I came with a bag full of stuff, barely. And I ended up staying there for like 6 months, and I was doing good. My PO was super proud of me. I was doing good. I was doing therapy for a while, and in one of my therapy classes, we talked about something really hard. I didn't have all the coping skills yet. So after that therapy class, that group, actually it was an individual. So after that individual walked out, we were talking about something I experienced, trauma, when I was young. Long story short, and I told myself, I'm going to go put all this trauma into a glass and knock it back. And that's what I did. I hopped on the Max. This was in Oregon. I went downtown. and I drink. And I regret it so much to this day because I had a good amount of clean time under my belt and I was doing good. Everybody was so proud of me. And I was trying to make it back in time by 8 o'clock because that was my curfew. And the way God works, I believe, on the way back, I had somebody pick me up from the max to drop me off at the house. And I got into a car accident. The person was driving, I wasn't. It was a pretty bad accident. Hopped out the car, ran home. My house mom knew automatically. Like, she knows. Like, that lady was like a genius. Like, she just knew everything. And she goes, go to bed. We'll talk about it in the morning. Sleep it off. I was like, I have to pack my stuff. She's going to kick me out. So the next morning came. She got in touch with my probation officer. I had to tell my probation officer everything. Taught me out accountability. She said, I'm going to put you on a 90-day probation here at the house. You do not go anywhere besides class. You're not allowed to, if you go to a meeting, you have to take a meeting buddy. Like, I was on it was already strict there, but she made it a stricter schedule. And I was so mad. And of course, my PO was like, hey, it's either that or jail. And I was like, of course, I'm going to choose that. I don't want to go to jail. Who wants to go to jail? Hated it. But as a child, I knew that I was never home. My parents were out chasing addiction, and so was I. So that's what I did. So being on that 90-day probation taught me how to stay home, taught me how to keep myself busy without the use of a substance or without, running the streets or up to no good. So I started getting into things like coloring and reading and Netflix shows. And I was so scared to be alone at home because trauma, childhood, I didn't want to be alone anymore. But that 90-day little sanction at my house saved my life. Like, it taught me how to be alone. It taught me how to stay home. Now I'm a homebody. I love being home. You can tell we're staying home. Yes, gosh, like binge watching Netflix. That's my cup of tea right there. So after that, I graduated IOP with honors, I say, because everybody was so proud of me and everything that I did. And I hold on to that for long. I still have my certificates. I have every book, every note, my planner. I still have it. I open it from time to time. I like to, show my friends and family, like, these are my accomplishments that I'm proud of. I have had slip-ups since then. I truly believe that there is something that I missed while working the program that I still need to dig deeper, and I believe in that. But I still see myself being clean. No matter how many slips it takes me, I'll always end up back in the rooms. I know I will, because that's where I feel proud of myself. That's where I feel like I have a purpose, that's where I belong. I believe that, I truly do. But no matter how many ladders I have to climb, I'm going to keep trying. And hopefully my biggest thing right now is to find support. That's my short little testimony from when I first got introduced to the rooms, and it was nice. I loved IOP. It saved my life.
As I was listening, I just hear a lot of resilience, and I love your honesty because there are struggles and everybody's path is different. Every single recovery story is different. Everything we go through is different. So hearing that, yes, sometimes we do have falls, sometimes we do have slip ups, but the big thing is that we continue to get up and keep pushing forward and keep pushing forward. And so recovery and addiction, there's struggles. All of us have those struggles. Even without addiction in life, there are struggles. But when we throw addiction in there, sometimes it's just amplified so huge. So I thank you for your story. I thank you for just sharing a little bit about what you've gone through, because I know that there may be somebody out there tonight or today that may need to hear that, just keep pushing forward and it can be done and we can continue to push through. And yeah, the struggle's real, the battle's real, but I appreciate you just being able to put it out there.
I really like how in your story, you were telling us how you may have some slips. I think it's very important to pay attention to what a slip is instead of what a relapse is. A slip isn't going back into the lifestyle. It's just having a quick bad judgment call. I think that's a very big thing for people to realize, is that if you do make a mistake, do the next right thing. Mm-hmm. I do have some questions for you though. Like Michelle said, being in active addiction is so confusing and it's really hard to crawl out of. What advice or what pointers would you have to give someone in starting that process?
First going in, always pick up the phone. The phone gets so heavy and so lonely. That was one thing I first learned was going in was always pick up the phone no matter what. Talk about anything and everything. I had somebody always, was just sitting on FaceTime with me, processing, because I think one of the biggest things for me is that secrets keep you sick, and keeping stuff inside just hurts you more and more, and then following up with the lies, and it's a very hard lifestyle. So one of the just picking up the phone and always having somebody that's healthy and positive on your side, that like even a mentor, even a friend, it could be anybody, or somebody that you're just freshly getting clean with. Another thing for me was meetings, just listening, even if you're sitting in the back of a meeting, or you know therapy was a big one for me too, processing with somebody safe that you trust, and just stuff like that, keeping yourself busy, finding your hobbies that are healthy. Those are things that really helped me start getting into the rooms. But accountability was my biggest one, hands down. Telling people, oh, I have one day clean today, I'm 24 hours, speaking in the rooms how much clean time I had, or speaking to people, because nobody wants to go tell, I relapsed. It's very hard to say that. So if you have that accountability, I think it truly helps you to keep coming back. It helps you to keep, that, I can do this. So-and-so believes in me. So-and-so knows how much clean times I have, So that's one of the biggest things that helped me through that was accountability.
Great. I have a good concept because our paths are not the same, but they're very similar. Maybe to expand upon what accountability is for you and what it could mean for other people.
Accountability for me is, well, one is putting yourself on blast, like I did this, and, I might be ashamed of it, but I'm backing it up because lying is not an option for me. Accountability is also, risking getting in trouble, knowing that outcome might be bad. That outcome, it might be, the worst case scenario. Going to your PO and say, look, I did this, this, and this. But keeping that honesty with accountability is so much better than being sick and having your tummy turning all the time and worrying about somebody finding out your lies. And just accountability comes with being an honest person. It comes with, a lot of healthy support, and I think accountability leads my life today, honest, because if I wasn't accountable today, I feel like I wouldn't be successful. I wouldn't call myself out on my mistakes, because I think I need to know when I'm wrong, and I need to know, and I do a daily inventory on myself. I figure out what I can do for better for myself and what can I do worse. And when it comes to accountability, I tell on myself right away. And I think that leads me to a more positive life, because lies just keep you so sick. I don't like that feeling of lying, and I hate liars. Like if anybody lies to me and I catch you in a lie, that trust to build relationships, it's very important. Like it's the middle of a relationship, a friendship, a family member relationship. If you can't trust somebody, how is that connection there? You can't have that. So if you did people make mistakes. Nobody is perfect. I still waiting to meet the most perfect person ever. I doubt I ever am. But I think that accountability shows like I'm willing to back up what I did and learn from it and process it and not do it again, because that's learning life. We're going to trip and fall. We're going to get back up. That's it. So I really accountability, even my team where I work today, I'm like, you have to hold yourself accountable. You put something wrong, come tell me. We'll work through it, versus me finding out. That's going to be worse.
So it's safe to say when you talk about accountability, you're talking about, of course, like you said, telling yourself, but at the same time, you're talking identifying what you did and then making the adjustments to make sure that doesn't happen again. I think that's huge. Do you believe that the concepts and the things you've learned as you walked into your sobriety and your recovery, do those same things expand and float out into the rest of your life?
Absolutely. Oh, yeah. I wouldn't be where I am today. And I'm actually not where I want to be yet, because I feel like I said, there's always room to grow. But everything that I've learned in recovery, in the rooms, and in IOP, I apply to my daily life every day. And I find it hard to believe that I would be clean if I didn't have those things. Because when I went into the rooms, I didn't know what accountability meant. I'm like, what is that word? What account? As accountant? Like I had to guess, like I didn't understand it. And then when I started to learn it, I'm like, whoa, like I can tell on myself when I'm wrong. I don't have to hide it from my parents anymore. Like, so even today, like I get in trouble and I didn't stop at a stop sign. The officer pulls me over. I'm sorry, officer. I know I didn't stop at that stop sign. Instead of saying I stopped, or arguing, it just being able to have that in my day-to-day life. Like, I run a store today, and to be able to run my store, I need to be able to hold people accountable also. So I think it's a day-to-day life, and it's not only accountability, it's trust, it's honesty, acceptance is a big one. Just these are things that you need day to day that help you process life better, that help you walk through life better. And I think that's the closest to normal I'm going to get, honestly.
So, Danielda, tell us how addiction has played a role in your life.
I grew up around addiction like pretty much all my life. Kind of like traumatized me a little bit, a lot. I thought it was normal because I would see them doing it constantly every day and I would think it's okay. But like the older I got, I knew it wasn't. But there was a time that I felt alone, so I got into like alcohol and it kind of like led me to bad decisions and I ended up catching charges and just doing wrong by it. And then I stopped, but then I continued to do it again. And then recently, a few years back, I met JoJo and she she showed me what like therapy was, what accountability meant, because I didn't know any of that. Sorry, I'm not good at this.
You're doing good.
You're doing good.
Well, now I'm in therapy and I think it's helped a lot. And then I felt like when I felt alone, I didn't have like that support I needed. I didn't know who to call. I knew I could call my sister or like my brother, but I didn't think they had like the words to tell me like what I needed to hear. Because sometimes I'm stubborn, and I do make like a lot of mistakes, but I try to like own up to them. Recently, I did a mistake and I held myself accountable with my PO and I was honest, truthful. I'm leaving it in God's hands and accepting what the consequences would be. But it was kind of rough growing up because I left like at 15 years old because I didn't want to go down that path. I just tried to do better for myself and I was like young and alone, so I didn't know what I was supposed to do, how to live, how to get like my own place. So my Uncle Marvin, he helped me like get a trailer and I had it for a few years and that's what kind of like put a step in the door. And
Thank you. You did great. It's not easy to...
I get really emotional when I talk, so I'm like, because I have like so much to say, but I can't get it out.
Those are usually the ones with the best testimony.
Yeah, it's difficult sometimes to put things into words because like you're saying, sometimes it's up here and getting it out. But I think that continues to go again, like what they said, like how addiction plays so many roles in so many people's lives. It could be, personally, it could be, growing up around family members in it. I think hearing from you as well is that connection, finding those supports. It seems like that is a huge part of being able to continue in this journey because I think a lot of the times what tends to happen is, just like when we're little, we do something bad, we go hide, and that's where that isolation comes in. That's where when you're just there alone, that's when all those, you just continue to shut down. And the last thing we want to do in those moments is reach out. But when we reach out, that's when we know we're not alone. That's when we are able to pull through these moments. And so thank you again, both for bringing that up, because I think that is a huge thing that somebody needs to hear is, yes, we do mess up. Yes, we do fall. Nobody is perfect. But when that happens, we have to reach out so we can continue to move forward.
I agree. I think that's a very, very important factor is that none of us can do this alone. We can't stay sober by ourselves. We can't make it through the day by ourselves. We got to have like-minded people to bounce our ideas off of. I know that in the course of a day and in the course of my travels into sobriety and long-term recovery, I had to have people around me that I could call at 2 in the morning, or people around me that I could call and talk about a trigger, or call and talk about nothing. Just sit there in the quiet. And it may sound a little weird and awkward, but the person on the other end of the phone completely gets it. And that's the beauty of it. And then on the other side of the coin is when you make the support network, the support system, your friends, your support network, they get to know you. What is JoJo doing today? What are you doing today? What are you doing today? And so when that behavior changes, like, what's going on with JoJo? So you have that, not just yourself that holds you accountable, but your support network can hold you accountable. And together you can have those wins where you don't fall back down that rabbit hole. So I really like that you guys brought that up, to that support, those calls, and to realize that this is not a perfect walk. You're going to bang your head. You're going to scrape your knee. That's just the facts. And I really love that both of you are sitting here, living proof. This is how it's done. And it can be done very effectively.
And, and that we can continue that journey and we can do it together again. There may be slips, but don't stay stuck there. So we are going to come together. We're going to do this every single week. And we just continue to want to just let people know that there is hope, that change is real, that change is lasting. And so we're going to be doing this Mondays and Thursdays. We will be having our guests joining us and just sometimes just picking a topic. We're also going to have community members that come on and tell us, what they're doing in our communities to help people in addiction or just in our community for anything. So we just thank you guys for being here today. We're so appreciative that you just dropped in and just give a good word out there. So we thank you and we appreciate you being here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Sorry, I'm a little shy, but I'll get there.
Yes.